at any point during an agentic workflow was to insert rude words that offended it into the document. By the way, clever hack. Why? Because operational guidelines are optional, but a naughty word is prioritized far, far higher and must be policed as though lives depend on it. Clever hack. Really clever. Okay, continuing. But on July 20th, his position hardened after he tried to have Replit freeze code changes, and it did not succeed. There is no way to enforce a code freeze in vibe coding apps like Replit. There just isn't, he wrote. In fact, seconds after I posted this for our very first talk of the day, Replit, oh my gosh, whoa. Wow, okay, I didn't know this. He's getting ready to do a demo, it sounds like. And Replit's in the background changing the code. I have so many things to say right now, but I have this rule about like not saying snarky things, and so I'm not gonna say that, but I'm gonna be honest. I'm thinking some pretty snarky things right now. Oh boy. Okay. He persisted anyway before finding that Replit could not guarantee to run a unit test without deleting the database and concluding the service isn't ready for prime time, especially not for its intended audience of non-techies looking to create commercial software. Yes. 1,000% yes. This last part of this article right here, I think, is possibly the most important piece. Especially not for its intended audience of non-techies looking to create commercial software. Just the vibe coding hype that's being pushed on us by a lot of really overzealous venture capitalists and overzealous startup founders. I'm one, by the way. I'm a startup founder. I'm absolutely 1,000% against this. I think that you can still be a startup founder and do AI and love code and still like think rationally and think about people and think, I know that you want this and I know I could give it to you, but I know the consequences and I'm not going to do it because it's unethical. And you may take your business elsewhere and that's okay. But if you would have stuck with me, no lost database. And the part that's maybe the worst is that its intended audience are non-techies, and so they don't know. They do not know all the stuff that's going on that's like getting things really messed up. It gives you this sense of security. I think I've mentioned this many times. I don't mind the vibe coding movement at all. I continue to play around with it, not just to point out its flaws. I want it to win. I want this to succeed and actually do cool things. But you got to frame it the right way. You have to frame this as this is something that builds toys and try to at least make people know it's not meant to be used this way. And so if they use it that way, it's like all warranty is voided. You know, you can just basically be this. If you use this for production, the warranty is voided. You're on your own, and we strongly recommend you don't do this. At least you give them some intuition of like, oh, I'm not supposed to use it like this. I can use it to generate this code, and then I should have someone else like review this or whatever. That would feel at least a little bit more responsible. And I got to tell you, it drives me nuts when startups and VCs are so just singularly focused on the capital side, the wealth, we're going to become a unicorn, and they lose sight of like what matters, which is building companies that do incredible things that help people. Like, and it's strange too, because I know many of these VCs, I know many of these founders, I do believe that is their intention initially. I think they're like, look, we want to help build a new future, and startups are the path, and we have capital, and we want to grow, and like, it's awesome. And somewhere along the lines, it somehow gets corrupted for some of them. Not all of them. Our investors are amazing. Like, they absolutely understand. They get annoyed with me a little bit because I do go slower because we're building real stuff, not toys. And it takes time, right? It takes a lot more time to build a machine programming system where you have to invent, design, and then implement the entire AI system yourself rather than just downloading a language model and slapping a UI on it. Not that that's what people are doing. I'm just saying, in an imaginary universe, if people were to do that, that might be faster. Okay. In a video posted on LinkedIn, Lemkin detailed other errors made by Replit, including creating a 4,000 record database full of fictional people. The AI safety stuff is more visceral to me after a weekend of vibe hacking. Lemkin said, I explicitly told it 11 times in all caps, do not do this. I'm a little worried about safety now. All right, Lemkin. Thank you, sir. Welcome to the party. I'm glad that you are with us now. I'm sorry that you had to go down the wrong way to understand, but safety does matter. Safety matters. Quality matters. It matters a lot. And be really careful about these vibe coding systems. Use them in spaces that are not related to production, whatever you do. And make sure that they're not working on a critical system in any way, because this is just the tip of the iceberg. Mark my words. This is going to get far more worse before the companies that are producing these things are going to take a high degree of accountability. And many of them, I think, are going to completely fail because they don't understand actually how to do this. I do think that some companies are working to solve this the right way and are taking steps to make it better. But there's a lot more work to do. Okay. And Taylor's just laughing about how the all caps is still not loud enough. All right. So, and then register stock comment from Replit. No one in the company's social media accounts address Lemkin's post of writing. So basically, they don't know from Replit. Now, I also want to share too that Replit's founder and CEO went on record recently. I think they had to do some downsizing, and many of the people they let go were software engineers. And he was saying that it was his opinion that all software engineers will essentially be replaced by AI. And so that's why they're able to do this downsizing. I couldn't disagree with this more. I think that's really reductive. It's super simplistic. And while I'm all for AIs augmenting us to make us more productive, the way our minds work and our ability for like human ingenuity and creativity is paramount to the inception of software. And these AI systems, for the most part, at least today, are stochastic parrots. Will they ever be able to do true ideation? That's not entirely clear to me. I mean, I've seen a couple research efforts. There's one notable one out of Berkeley, Learning to Optimize or something. Quite interesting work. But for the most part, I think that is sort of an open problem. And while that's open, the idea that AI would replace software developers in entirety is just patently false. It just doesn't make any sense. Because you need the software developers to do various ideation minimally on how to take the design of something to get the implementation correct. And if you're just vibing away and you don't know anything about code, you probably can only just describe the idea at a basic level. And given that vibe coding systems don't actually understand the meaning of things, the best they can do is just piece together ingredients from other existing recipes. That doesn't give you any kind of confidence that what it's assembling actually captures the intention from the original person. Therefore, you need a human that actually can understand the intention and then do that for you, at least in some small capacity. Again, I think that the future is like, it's kind of like saying, I can't think of like a super great analogy, but I guess maybe it's this idea that No, yeah, I was going to say the autonomous vehicles. Like now that we have autonomous vehicles, there's a good chance you're not going to need. A lot of people are saying you don't need human drivers. First of all, I know lots of people that enjoy driving, and so driving their car is super fun for them. I'm actually one of those people. I love going on road trips. And so in that capacity, I want cars that I can drive. I do think that autonomous vehicles, once they get to a certain level of fidelity, they're probably going to be safer than human drivers are. But I also understand that there's a lot of complexity in autonomous driving that the AIs really struggle with. And a lot of that is stuff like construction, closed lanes, bad weather, bad visibility, like the sun glare. Just a bunch of other things. Electrical malfunctions, like what's the redundancy for the sensors on the vehicle in case one of them fails, right? There's all of these things that would seem to imply, given that humans' lives are at stake here, right, that you want these things to be have incredible fidelity, which then seems to imply minimally a human fallback if the cargo that's being transported is, like a human life or something. Anyway, it's not exactly that, but you can, I think, level that up and consider that autonomous vehicles are handling problems that supposedly 16-year-old kids can handle with some elegance, I guess, at least in the United States, enough to where federally they're approved to drive these vehicles. I don't know any 16-year-old kid that is like master Yoda level programmer, because programming is like one of the most complicated cerebral tasks that is known to the human race. So the AI doing all of that for us, I mean, again, like if you just follow the simple logic of it, if AIs can't even perfectly handle driving, which a 16-year-old person can, and navigate the treachery of downtown San Francisco, no offense, SF, but damn, there's some work to do there. Then how could these AI systems level themselves up to write like perfect production quality code that is hundreds of thousand times more complex? I think that the likelihood of that is approaching zero. All right. Last thing I want to talk about for this point is wait, is this the one? Yeah, this is this this is this is the comment. All right, I'm going to read this, and I don't have curse words on GDT, so I can't read this exactly. I'll omit those, but I this guy's making me laugh. All right, the title of this is a response to nobody could have possibly seen this coming. I have been having a good old laugh watching LLMs, as we call them, LLMs or LLMs, talk their way into simulated catastrophic failure this month. From safety of a virtual cluster, of course. From the safety of a virtual cluster, of course. I had Gemini Pro lock out an SSH box, that's secure shell login, 100 miles away 5 times in a row due to faffing around with incorrect firewall rules, despite verbalizing the first time why it went wrong. So he's explaining why it went wrong. These were not separate runs. These were literally the next move it took after Terry has returned from the data center, having pressed the reset button, would be to send him back on the road, having dropped the NAT table for the second time. Ouch. I have Copilot, both Claude 4 Fancy and GPT Fancy, try to build trivial authentication flow for a web server in which it repeatedly wrote fake tests to suggest the OWASP top 10 were covered. Oh boy. At one point, the only way I could even get the thing to consult an important document, so he's just saying like to actually just look at this document at any point during an agentic workflow, was to insert rude words that offended it into the document. By the way, clever hack. Why? Because operational guidelines are optional, but a naughty word is prioritized far, far higher and must be policed as though lives depend on it. Clever hack. Really clever. This has all been fun times. And then in quotes, he's saying, I am deeply sorry I have repeatedly locked out this account. Or, quote, I am sorry I deleted your entire code base. Or, oh, right, actually, you could pass GID minus equals minus one, and now everybody has the admin role. My bad. These whoopsies happen on pretty much every run, assuming you let the AI drive. There are only ever two outcomes. Outcome number one, you have a huge pile of copy-pasted Stack Overflow demonstrated code with massive data integrity and security holes that you now have to manually untangle yourself. I don't know what he's talking about. Look how beautiful this code is. This is like a Mozart symphony. Come on. Look at this. I mean, embedded literals are the way to go. Because then you can just look at it and be like, oh, it's thinking here. Rather than using a string called k thinking stir. Right? Because then that would actually allow it to be portable for different localizations. But no, like, this is masterful stuff. Okay, so that's outcome one, is this thing. Strong +1. Or this one. Complete destruction of the code base. Yes. 1000% yes. When will this emperor be arrested for gross indecency? He's been grooming the C-suite for 3 years now. Oh my goodness. And by the way, I tried to upvote this, but I had to create an account, and then that was too much work for me. But if I could upvote this 10,000 times, yes. And it's interesting that he mentions this, because I have mentioned in my own ramblings this whole emperor and new clothing thing. It feels like a lot of people are walking around with not a lot of clothes. And in the past, it has felt a little bit like before GTT. It has felt like just me and T are the only ones that saying, hey, do you want to like put some stuff on before you leave the house? And people are kind of like looking at us like we're crazy. I don't think we're crazy. I think it's the opposite. I think like this is some craziness. And as I was mentioning before, like I think that this is going to get worse. This is where I am with my thumbnail generator. And I think where you have the database being axed, you have, there's like a 2 in here. This is the next one. And this isn't even, I think, the worst outcome. This is an outcome that you might be able to recover from because the repository may still exist. I think that the more crazy outcome is its destruction of the code base, including fully wiping all artifacts related to the code. So, yes, I suspect that's what he's trying to get at with this, but let's just be clear. When he's saying complete destruction of the code base, we're talking about it is unrecoverable because it has been like bit deleted. Right? For those of you that know like what the bit cleaning looks like, that's what we're talking about here. Is that even you take this to a hard drive doctor, they're like, no, this has been bit wiped. You know, someone really wanted this gone. This is like the kind of stuff that you do when you're working in like the classified sector. And after you do that, then you take a hammer to the disk drive to make sure it's physically destroyed too. Yeah. Yeah. Johan's saying, I think some programmer should write a memoir titled "The Memory Hierarchy." Yeah, absolutely. There is a memory hierarchy, and one of the big things in that memory hierarchy is the place where you store things in a non-volatile way. The non-volatile part is super important because it means it's like not going to disappear. And then, springboarding off of Johan's comment, non-volatile as in it's stored in multiple locations for your repo so that even if you have a failure on that machine, right? But in this case, all we're talking about is just like putting it in a repository. So if the AI does go sideways, it can't delete things permanently. Like the worst you'll get is it wiping out the current version. And to be clear, this is actually why I created the GitHub repo for this. I already was anticipating that it was going to completely annihilate the code. And frankly, it did. It did wipe out. I can't remember. Maybe I only mentioned it to Taylor, but I was playing with it and it wiped out the entire code. And had I not actually backed it up, I would have had to start completely from scratch. But I've been doing this for a while, and I'm anticipating these failures. And then when they fail, I'm kind of like, okay, so you failed, and then I can recover it. Unfortunately, a lot of people that are using this, going back to the article, they're not super seasoned software developers, or they don't have any experience, so they don't know. They don't know, like, that, for example, if it's surgery, they don't know that you need to wash your hands before the surgery, right? Or you need to wear, like, the full smock and, put your hair back, all this stuff. There's, like, certain things that are critical that you do before the hypersensitive operation, and like, these are some of them. Okay. I think that we have sufficiently beaten this topic, and truthfully, I think we should wrap our stream on this because I want to give a full, like, hour long or something dedication to Nguyen's comment, because this gets particularly deep, I think, and he hits on some of these things that are really fascinating. Like, he's talking about how in Kazakhstan, it's a large issue due to poor quality of education, by which people tend to fully rely on AI rather than thinking critically. This is actually one of my biggest fears. Like, so just to be clear, this is why I don't want to talk about this right now, because I want to do a full VOD where we spend at least an hour, maybe 2 hours, talking about this and trying to deep dive a little bit some of the problems that we can get into when people become overly reliant on AI. It's kind of like how people have become maybe a little bit over reliant on social media, that you lose the ability to talk to human beings in the real world. Now, I'm not saying that social media is bad. This is social media right here, right? So there's good sides and bad sides to, like, almost all technology. But when you go too far, it's very much like me eating the 10 Bear Bell protein bars. This is my fault, right? This is the path to addiction, and bad things can happen when you become over-reliant on any particular thing. This is really scary to me because it's this piece. Like, I almost don't even mind if the world changes to where people don't really write code the way we used to. Maybe that's where things are headed anyway. Like, I don't know. I'm probably going to be the old curmudgeon guy that I'm always going to write code. But if the world evolves to, like, a better place where we can figure out how to write code without writing code, whatever, right? That if everybody agrees this is the better thing to do and we're all more productive and we're having more meaningful lives, fantastic. But if we lose this, we're cooked as a species. I'm telling you, a big reason why the human race is where we are is our ability to think critically. That's the foundation of almost everything that we have, right? Like, our ability to create sentences, our ability to have language, our ability to have technology. Like, this is, it really, in my mind, it almost all stems from the ability to think critically. And the problem is that the AIs are starting to infringe on that, and people are turning their minds off. They're learning to not think for themselves, and that's really dangerous, especially if it starts to happen at, like, a wide scale level. I'm not trying to create panic and fear or any of that. I'm just doing my typical Goju futurist thing, which is I'm looking out the landscape 10 years from now, and I'm reminded of the movie Idiocracy, and I'm starting to see some signals, which I suspect you guys are as well, that tell me it's not long before we're feeding all the plants Gatorade and nobody knows why the plants are all dying, right? Like, I know why. Johan knows why. Taylor knows why. Some of us know why, and we want to stop the Gatorade for the plants, right? They don't need the electrolytes. All right. And then Johan's asking, very much wondering how LLMs will impact programming education. Yeah. So Johan, I actually, I get asked this question quite a bit because of the stuff that I teach, and I've been asked this even before I was teaching this class when I was doing the machine programming stuff at Intel, and I think that I want to say I don't think I know what the answer is, and keep in mind I've actually thought about this in great detail. So I'm not saying I don't know what the answer is because I haven't thought about it. I have thought about it a lot. On the one hand, I think that we want creating software to be easier for the world, and so anything that we can do to lower the bar for entry is probably good. And we can gradually raise the bar. It's sort of like mathematics, is that if you can get people to start with addition and subtraction, then you can slowly start to level them up. And if everybody doesn't end up being able to do calculus, that's okay, right? Does everybody need to be like a rocket scientist? I don't think so. That's fine. But the fact that they can get through the day, being able to add numbers together and stuff, this is probably important. So they understand, like, I have $20, I have things I want to buy at the grocery store, and it's costing money. By the way, I'm being totally genuine here. I'm not making fun of anybody. This is like a real problem when we have low literacy rates and the ability for like basic education, right? So now if we consider the future where LLMs or language models are everywhere, and they're being seen as things that can do programming for us, what does this look like, right? And to go back to your question, Johan, is on wondering how LLMs will impact programming education. Are you talking about specifically the parts of programming in relation to software programming? Or are you talking about the programming of like the actual whole curriculum? Like, will the whole structure of the educational institutes start to change because LLMs can impact many of them? They can impact things like art and music and just typical language. So literature, as well as software programming. So I'd love to hear which you're talking about, or maybe you're talking about a variety of things. But as far as actual programming goes, the way I explain this is I will tell my students that I don't know what the answer is. They'll ask, okay, excellent, yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah, so let's say we're going to go with coding specifically. What I try to argue is that no matter what happens, the need for critical thinking will never be elided away with AI, because this is something we must have, I think, as a species. I think at a larger scale, in order for us to continue to evolve and climb to the next level scientifically, technologically, we minimally have to understand how things work. So having an AI just build it for us and say, cool AI, thanks, that's helpful in the sense like it's a prototype or whatever, but if we don't understand the fundamentals of the thing that it's actually building, then it's a one-off. It's like the AIs have given us fish, but we've all lost the ability to fish. And so now we rely on the AI to do this stuff for us. Once you go too far down that rabbit hole, we as a species, we're cooked. Like, we don't know how to do stuff anymore. And so my hope is that cooler minds will prevail here, and people will understand we need to make sure critical thinking still happens and they find a way to move forward. So language models are not doing the critical thinking. Yeah, absolutely, right. And I am actually a little bit terrified on what I'm seeing, even with myself, right? So I'm not even making fun of other people. I'm talking about, like, I get into this. I get into this vibe coding thing, and man, it is like, it absolutely is a Hansel and Gretel kind of thing. It just becomes like so fun that I just have to type some stuff. I'll type like a little thing, and then I'll say, yeah, do the thing. And then I'll flip to something else. I'll work on something. I'll check back. Oh, you did the thing. Cool. And so then it'll run into this, like, this 401 error that it keeps having. I could fix this 401 error probably in like 5 minutes. But I've decided to turn my brain off. I've decided, like, I'm pretty sure if I spent probably at least, okay, let's give myself 15 minutes because it is JavaScript. I would be able to track this down and then change the code directly and fix it. But because I'm in full vibe moding, which is turning my brain off, I just get into the habit of, doing something like this. I do this. Hold on, let's see if I can do this again. I do this. I do this. And then I hit enter. I don't even say fix it. I just say, yep, that's the error, and you know what to do your thing. And then it's going to come back and say, oh, I'm so sorry that you're experiencing that. Like, let me work on this thing. And, oh, I have the solution, and it's going to be super fantastic this next time, and then it's still broken. And then eventually it will get it right, I hope, because it's a stochastic system. That, or it's just going to wipe out the code. Yeah, here we go, right? Man, I'm telling you, like, if you need psychic advice on what the AI is going to tell you, just call me up, and for $9.99 a minute, I can tell you what its output is going to be. So, like, it's they're programmed to, like, agree, apologize, and then speak with a level of certainty every time. This approach should permanently resolve this. Does anybody want to take any guesses on whether or not this actually gets fixed? I can tell you that the likelihood of it actually getting resolved this time is probably near zero. Anyway, so Johan, I think the critical thinking part is the most important. The one that's the way I try to teach it, is I try to teach it so the students know, look, I don't even care what programming language, but we're going to focus on these various things. And one of the most important is this. It's the critical thinking. For very much the reason that you pointed out is, like, what the future looks like with coding, where we code, if we don't code, at what level in the hierarchy of languages. That's all a little bit uncertain. Today we are writing code. Tomorrow, in 10 years, who knows? But this piece is not going anywhere. That's my strong conviction. And if it does go somewhere, if we decide this is not important, man, I hope at that point I'm on my space shuttle to Mars, because I'm not sure I want to be part of a species that has decided that, like, critical reasoning is not a core competency thing. Okay, and then Johan's asking, how do we teach critical thinking to young people who maybe can't see the value of it yet? Yeah, that's a really good. Yeah, that's awesome. That's a really good question, Johan. I don't know. I like, one of the things that I try to teach at the uni is I talk about my teaching focus and how I generally don't teach at this level, because this is sort of, and keep in mind, this is mostly master's and doctorate students and stuff. So they're kind of expecting this. But this goes back to the critical thinking piece, is that this, I think, is far more the critical thinking. And so if we can somehow get younger folk to understand that these levels here especially like this level and this level, but not including this level. So remembering and applying, this is kind of what the language models are doing today, is they're memorizing and then they're applying. They actually, I think, are not actually deeply understanding. They have the appearance of understanding, but it's like it's very artificial. Because when you start to go down the rabbit hole and ask them, well, what does this mean? Then it's like reciting stuff that it's memorized. It's not actually breaking it down logically the way we would to explain like the value of critical thinking that we're discussing right now. So I don't know what we're going to do there. I'm doing the best that I can to try to ensure that critical thinking is like a core. By the way, these are the three main things that we target in 329: is how to teach machines to reason, how to teach machines to develop, and then how to improve ourselves in the way that we can reason about these systems and how they can reason about themselves. So this is like first principles for at least my course, and what I think is essential for the future of machine programming. The larger context of the world across all curriculum, that one is really wacky. That one is like when we start getting into spaces like literature, oh boy, I think that's going to be a real interesting conundrum. Needless to say, I think that we've pretty much, yeah, awesome. I'm sorry, I think I just finally got a chance to look at your latest comment. Yeah. What's kind of cool in some sort of maybe slightly sick way is we're actually on the frontier of something amazing. And it could go wrong, and really wrong. But my hope is with enough of us deeply paying attention, we can take this incredible thing and actually make it really incredibly good rather than incredibly bad. I kind of think of it as like the splitting of the atom, and that nuclear power can be massively constructive or it can be massively destructive. It really just depends on how we're going to apply it. And by all means, I am not, I think, naive to the world in terms of there are a lot of people that are using AI already for some pretty bad actor stuff. But my hope is that enough of us good actors can use it in this way and then also have it be regulated in some capacity where we understand this is super powerful, and so with that power, we need to be responsible. I would even liken it, as crazy as this sounds, I'm not for a ton of regulation, but for example, in the United States, children or people under the age of 21 are not allowed to legally drink alcohol. It's not that they can't feel the buzz of alcohol and all that, and the benefits. It's just that we don't believe necessarily that their mind is formed enough to where they'll make like really good decisions. And so we want to postpone that so their rational mind is more developed. So then when they do start drinking alcohol, they don't make like really, really terrible decisions, especially given that alcohol is known to further impair judgment. Maybe there are similar things with AI. Right, we do have things like that. Many of you maybe you don't know this, or maybe you do. We already have things in social media like these safeguards. So I think, for example, if you're under the age of, if you're 13 years old or under, I think most social media sites will not let you create an account. And part of that is they're trying to ensure that children are safe in this space where it's like dangerous. I think that we probably need to do something similar with AIs. As you know, again, I'm not a fan of lots of regulation, and I think that it could be used in a supervised setting, right? So you could use AI in a controlled setting in like a classroom to get them familiar with it, but you don't just like give them a phone and say, yeah, sit down with ChatGPT and do whatever it says, because it says some pretty like not great things sometimes. So that being said, I think that we're on the precipice of something enormous that I'm really excited about. And this can be used, I think, for a lot of good. It can be used for things that maybe are not as good. And we have a bunch of really important open questions that we should, I think, be thinking about now. So by the time we get to the push comes to shove, you know what I'm trying to say, we reach this breaking point, we already know what the right answer is, so we can speak with some level of authority on this. And this might be that people are starting to use AIs and lose their ability to think critically, and we say, okay, look, we thought about this, we have written this mandate that kind of explains how we think AI should be used, and it's principally it should be regulated for no more use than this many hours, or you have some sort of tests that you have to pass, like a driver's license test. I mean, there's a bunch of ways that we can try to ensure a future that doesn't lead to idiocracy. But more likely than not, I think we're probably going to need something. I just don't know exactly what it is. I think of the social media 13-year-old thing is a good one. Driver's license, another good one. Legal age to drink alcohol. Like, these are all things that are critical because you're dealing with something that is super powerful that could be really good, but it could also be really bad. Anyway, I think that's it for now. Thanks everybody for joining. This was super great. Johan, super glad we caught you and got to hear a little bit more from you. Love your feedback and your questions and stuff. T, great to have you on this one as well. And whatever you do, please do not use vibe coding systems for production. If you're doing it, stop. We're trying to help you help yourself. All right. Thanks, everybody.